The year is 2020, the turn of the new decade, and with it comes an onslaught of tragedies leaving the world in a state of chaos. Democracy being performed like a circus, a battle against police brutality, the Golden State catching on fire, and of course, COVID-19. A pandemic not only leaving the American people but the entire world trapped inside their homes. Businesses collapse. Death rates are rising, a sight that would make Uncle Sam ask his doctor about taking Zoloft. However, today, we shall focus on a topic that, while doesn't involve death or bankruptcy, can still be considered equally important as the tragedies just listed. As the late John F. Kennedy once said, our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. So today, we discuss with 5 Lasallian professors the ways in which our nation's education has been impacted by this pandemic, their stories, their philosophies, the good, the bad, and of course, the ugly.
If you can just state your full name, please, and what you teach at LaSalle.
I'm Dr. Julie Hill.
I'm Dr. Katie Neary Dunlevy.
My name is Jeffrey Beatty.
Father Frank Berna.
John Heimers.
And I teach in the psychology department.
Associate professor here in the communication department.
Assistant professor in the digital arts program.
Adjunct teaching the honors program.
Associate professor of philosophy at Salle University.
My job 1 year ago, again, I was teaching undergrads, going to campus 4 days a week, helping a little bit in campus ministry with Mass Monday through Thursday. And then it was kind of like I hit a brick wall.
Well, I'm a news junkie, or a media junkie, actually. So I almost always have the radio on. And the BBC was talking about this flu in China, and they made it a big deal. They were always talking about it every day, but it wasn't something that was really affecting Europe or America for that matter.
As the novel coronavirus continues to spread worldwide from its starting point in Wuhan, China,
I started realizing that there's this virus that seemed to be making its way to the States.
Worldwide this morning, growing concern over a growing health crisis, with health officials here in the U.S. moving fast to prepare for what the CDC has called an inevitable spread.
And that it might be affecting us and that we might not come back after spring break, but the university hadn't said anything.
I wanted to reach out to you with my hope that each of you and your families are navigating through these challenging times.
And we had just come off of a spring break, so I think there was like this period where there was like a spring break, and then it was like an extended break to see whether things would change or not. And then the message came down that everyone was going to be staying at home.
As colleges welcome students back, some are already shutting down.
This would be kind of nice, be sort of relaxing. I won't have to commute, and then it should be over. And then they talk, well, it looks more like a month, 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's the rest of the semester.
it's just depressing. It's straight up, heading straight up right now.
As we know, the World Health Organization just declared this a global health emergency.
We have it totally under control.
As the U.S. is dealing with the worst pandemic in a century.
It was just a surprise to see how quickly this thing that we knew about it already, how quickly it snowballed into such a life-changing thing.
My life has evolved over, my professional and my personal life has evolved over the course of the pandemic. And it's hard for me to untangle those two things. So in the beginning, there was this kind of sense of, I don't want to say excitement because there was certainly fear, but it was almost like a snow day.
It was, when it was a possible 2-week sort of window, I sort of just looked forward to it, to slow down a little bit.
I really wasn't nervous about it. I've taught online classes, completely online classes before, and I thought, this won't be bad. I can handle this. And I really did think that it wasn't going to be as big of a deal as it kind of ended up being.
We got to be together, my wife, my kids, and we really enjoy kind of being at home together. You know, we would have movie nights and game nights, and we were really like creative and productive.
My family lives in Belgium, and I go to Philadelphia during the school year, right? So I'm away from my family. So when I'm in Philadelphia, I have my nose to the grindstone. constantly working on something, a book, lecture notes, something. I'm pretty much locked up in my room. Like 2 years ago, this day, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be sitting in my apartment surrounded by books, trying to get everything done. So when I came back to Leuven, I could be a father and a husband. So when the pandemic first hit, there was no real change in my life except that I didn't go to the office. In that sense, it was great because I could just sit at my desk, write, and then say, "Oh my God, look at the time! Okay, now it's time to lecture on Honors 132."
I think kind of the funniest thing that I ended up doing to keep busy was my cat was not used to me being home all the time. And so my cat was getting really annoying and just needed a lot of attention. So I learned about clicker training my cat. People normally know about it in terms of dogs, but apparently it works well with cats too. And now my cat is clicker trained and can do some tricks.
Oh, what's your cat's name? This is very important for the documentary.
Yeah, his name is Sunny. He's taking a nap right over there.
Now, of course, like we've gone through all these different stages, and I think now as we're starting to see, like we're hitting like, I think a wall in terms of our, I don't want to say it. We're hitting a wall in terms of like our patience.
I actually had a very hard time at the beginning. I am a very anxious person. My anxiety levels were through the roof in really weird ways. I was not one of those people who was hoarding things like, running around hoarding the hand sanitizer, things like that. But I noticed that I was like overly consumed with thinking about food, thinking about like, okay, when I go to the grocery store and I have to get this thing and that thing. It was very, it felt like very primitive in a way, that I was always just thinking about like the daily function.
But then as I became aware that this is going to drag on, I found that I was tired. I mean, I slept a lot. I didn't have to jump out of bed first thing in the morning to get to school or things like that. And not being enthused about the online stuff, okay, what do I have to do today for this class?
And right away, as soon as this stuff started happening, I had students that had lost their jobs or their parents lost their jobs.
College students were sometimes having to look after the siblings
and the students were trying to pick up, they happened to work at a grocery store, so they were trying to pick up extra hours since their parents lost their jobs.
Or when they did get online, to help them online. It just...
Students right away being affected with family members sick with COVID.
I was not enthused about my job.
So there was a lot of emotional work that came along with it. I signed up for the New York Times put out, and they still put out, a daily newsletter on COVID news. And so I'd get this email every evening around like 6 o'clock. I realized that some days that would like really be harmful for me to actually open it up. I'd become very overwhelmed. Nowadays, I guess I've become so desensitized to it. The email comes in, I'll skim it and read it, but it doesn't give me the same emotional reaction that it used to.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe what had happened. And to live through it and see it develop in real time was actually very interesting, as well as scary.
In the modern era, we live in what is known by most to be the age of the internet. Telephones in your pocket used to surf the web, tell time, be a calculator, and so much more. With this newfound technology, humanity created a service used to communicate with one another from across the globe. Zoom. With this new ability to see each other via Zoom through this perilous time, businesses as well as schooling resumed over the course of this pandemic. But our question today is, what was it like teaching using this advanced and wonderful technology?
My classes have not been Zoom bombed.
I didn't have anyone Zoom bombed.
I got Zoom bombed in one of my earliest meetings. Someone drew pics all over the place. And he called himself Harry Palms, and I actually fell for it. I said, I don't know Harry Palms. As soon as I said it, I can't even remember if I found it funny or if I was angry. I really can't remember. I wasn't traumatized by it, I'll tell you.
So it was at the end of the semester and students were presenting in groups. And so I had done some online presenting before, but I had never done online group presentations before. And to moderate that is its own challenge. And I really wanted to focus the screen on whoever was speaking in group at the time. And I kept hearing noises and sounds like a video game. It was clear to me that somebody was playing a video game in class. But because of the way I have the screens oriented due to the presentation, I couldn't figure out who it was because I wanted to go in the private chat and tell them to stop, but I couldn't figure out who it was, and it kept going, and I felt so badly for the group. You know, when somebody's disruptive in class during a group presentation, I don't call them out in the middle of the presentation because I don't want to further disrupt the group, but then afterwards I will tell that student to like leave the class, you know, but I couldn't figure out who it was, and I felt horrible because I couldn't figure out who it was, and we're hearing these, you know, video game noises going on, and it was bad all around. I couldn't figure out how to fix it.
It was the last class with my seniors, and I was trying to find a quiet space in the house to kind of have this last class with them. And it's like the last time I was going to like really interact with them before graduation, the Wi-Fi kept like was just so spotty. And I kept trying to say these very, very profound things, and like it was very meaningful for me, but everyone was like, "You're cutting out. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Could you say that again?" And I was just like, "Oh!" And eventually, like, it just wasn't working, and I couldn't get it to work. And I was just like, I just put in the chat, "I'm so sorry, guys. I'm just going to follow up with an email, and I hope everyone's good."
Multiple students come to class while they're driving in their cars. And that drives me nuts. It's so unsafe.
Anything else has really been just like either on the students' ends that they can't connect, or they don't have like good Wi-Fi, or, you know, their camera's not working, which is frustrating.
Some minor technical glitches aside, I was just doing what I always did. But in philosophy, everyone's responding to somebody else, and they're all trying to answer essential, eternal questions that never ended. But it's always in a conversation, right? It's an oral thing. And so with the exception that you don't see people's faces and can't really talk to them in person and have that bodily experience, it's not that much of a problem, I think, to teach over Zoom.
I found, as I put it then, and even in the fall, it was twice as much work with half the results. Just the whole personal part wasn't there. Students were doing what they had to do to post online. You know, some were engaged, but I would say most were just finding their way through.
Would it be better in person? Of course it'd be better in person. Well, why would it be better? It'd be better because you can just see faces and no one can turn their cameras off.
But I do miss, as a teacher, being in the front of the class, connecting visually with my students and seeing their expressions, seeing how they're responding. I can better gauge, are they interested? Are they bored? Are they getting it? Are they lost? It's so much easier when you can see them.
One of the things I wrestle with now, and I know some of my colleagues wrestle with, is having people with the video on.
It's trying to avoid me talking to a bunch of what ends up being black squares on the computer and nobody else responding.
And I do get frustrated with certain topics. You know, I'm teaching culture right now. We're talking about really sensitive issues regarding race relations, etc. I haven't gotten to it yet, but we're going to be talking about sexual communication in the interpersonal class. It's a really sensitive topic. And if I can't see people's faces or their body language or anything, it's not a Rosetta Stone that tells me exactly what they're thinking, but it gives me some feedback.
Body language and facial expressions and kind of the way people are, you know, doodling in their notebook, or, you know, the things that you notice in a meeting, the little details of the way people interact with one another.
You know, I can see that somebody's uncomfortable, or that somebody wants to say something, or that somebody disagrees, and that feedback is so necessary to the interpersonal experience of teaching.
And you can, I know that you pick up more, when you're using the Zoom or when you can see one another with video, you can pick up a bit whether people are engaged or not engaged, or they're puzzled by something. But it's still, I find the affective dimension is not there. And to me, that's a component of the learning experience.
And I don't know if it's like kind of human evolution or like kind of like human biology, but there's something that happens when people are in a room together. There's like a chemistry that develops. And I feel like that's missing from Zoom.
Oh, I want to just walk down the hall and stick my head into this person's office and ask them a question. Now I have to make it's a much more formal process of writing an email and like, do I include their name and sign my own name? And like, I just wanted to stick my head in and say, hey, do you know this?
One thing I really miss about being in person is not being able to walk around the classroom. When I'm teaching, I'm just online, I'm just sitting or I'm just standing. I need to like move around. Like, I don't know if I have like ADD or something like that, but I just need to like be moving around. My body needs to be kind of like in motion. I'm like either pacing along the whiteboard, I'm walking around the classroom, I'm constantly walking, and that is just gone.
Professors recognize and learn the names of people who talk. It's that simple. Even if you write a good essay and don't say anything in class, I'm not going to really remember your name that well. But if you're somebody who participates in class, remember names. Now in class, of course, I see your face. On Zoom, if you don't have your face on, I don't know if that's an expression, but if you don't have your camera on and you don't talk, it's destroyed me for understanding who the students are. That's a problem. And of course, another thing, this is looking to the future, and so it could be wrong, but I'm probably not going to recognize any of my students next semester when I pass them on the halls, but they're going to recognize me. And that's going to be weird.
I know as a country, we have seen enrollments drop. So some of that could be people that don't want to deal with the online format, but there's also been disproportionately more people, traditionally underserved, underrepresented groups are the people who are less likely to have enrolled not only in four-year schools, but also I believe community colleges have seen declines, and that's not typical. Like in the last recession, community colleges went up in their enrollment. So there is just a concern about the generation as a whole not getting access to the same education as the people before them and the people after them.
The spontaneity, and I'll use this word, the playfulness of the students themselves between each other. Yeah, I mean, I'll call it playfulness, but some of the other spontaneous interactions they have before or after class, or sometimes when you do a small group thing. And to me, that's not all wasted energy or all wasted in the learning process. Some people talk about like this deep learning, that it's, again, so much more than just information, that you're trying to address the whole human person. And a part of who we are is human beings are meant to play. When we can't do that, or we're a little bit less human with each other when we're together, just virtually, And so I think that some of that, is it better than nothing? Yeah, it's absolutely better than nothing.
We're missing those chance encounters that spark conversations that, oh, I haven't seen you all semester, because you work on the other end of campus, but we ran into each other at a meeting and, why don't we just, I don't have plans. Why don't we go grab something to eat, right? Those little kind of spontaneous moments just don't really happen when you're not in person. And I don't really know what a way, remotely to recreate those things. I think if you read some of the literature on kind of, the most innovative and creative organizations, a lot of what they really try to do is set up chance encounters between different parts of, people from different parts of the company, in a cafeteria, in a lounge, in a lobby, in a park outside the building, right? They really try and make it happen so that people can kind of run into one another and kind of spark up conversations. And that is to be missing from this?
Again, if you're trying to teach the whole person, which to me includes their spirit, their spiritual life, whatever that might be, it is about their friendships and their relationships. And if I know somebody, I can venture into some of that territory. If not immediately in the classroom, then perhaps when I see them in the union, or we bump into each other walking across campus. Or you can see some things, that again, just by having lunch in the union, you can see, well, who's this person sitting with? And now that you're doing this checkup on people, it's just that if you care about people, you take notice of them. And that's all just gone.
Moving forward, it seems to concern many people the ways in which this pandemic will have permanent impacts on our lives. One of those concerns includes our education system. Is this new format going to be permanent? Is there anything to take away from this pandemic? Anything to learn? Any meaning in all of this?
So some other things that I think that it takes away and to take away from this time that we spent online, and I touched on this before, but humanizing people more.
Psychology as a whole, as the field, there's been a lot of emphasis on making sure people understand how our mental health is being affected by the isolation, by loneliness, by not having these normal community gatherings, by not being able to mark funerals the same way, loss of life, the things that we normally do to get comfort. Many of them have been restricted or dramatically changed, and all of those have impacts on people.
I think that our reliance on this device as our memory has knockdown effects on learning as well. Especially since when I discovered that some students actually write their essays on their phones. Yeah. I've discovered this because I've seen some unbelievable whoppers of typos in papers. And so I asked, how come you use this word? And they said, I guess my phone must have done that. Obviously, if you're going to write something on a phone, you're probably not going to take the time to proofread it, right? Because you're using something which you consider convenient, so why bother rereading it?
I mean, it helps that all of your other colleagues are dealing with the same thing. And within the pandemic, I have connected with a lot of LaSalle faculty on Twitter that I had never connected with before. And that's become like this little Twitter support group of LaSalle faculty. And so it's nice to see them having the same struggles, the same issues. And it gives you a reminder to reframe it for yourself and be conscious of you're working during a pandemic. It's okay that you're not achieving where you would achieve when it's not a pandemic.
And so I just feel like even though there was this overwhelming sense of, fear regarding the pandemic, there was also this countervailing force of grace. Okay, you don't have to get it right the first time. We're going to be relaxed. We're not going to be so strict about grades or attendance or things like that. And I don't know if you found that to be true also, but those first couple of months, I think everyone was just really kind and compassionate to one another. And, they really tried to give each other, cut each other a lot of slack. No one was keeping anything on a really tight grip or a really short leash.
My personal attitude towards the pandemic is that I really think that this allowed us to see different options, and some worked and some didn't. And I really would like to see us rethink the way that we do things. I was hoping that as a society, the pandemic would really make us rethink how we do things, and I don't know that that's really going to happen. It doesn't appear like it's going to happen. And I'm kind of getting that same perspective from the university. The fall, we're going to be back to normal. And there's this whole idea of back to normal. And I feel like then that's wasting a lot of this time that we did spend in this. And that can't we have learned some things and think about doing things a little bit different.
If the pandemic has any effect on learning, it's probably a salutary one, because you should have more time to read. You should have more time to think. Yeah.
In the process of learning, I hope that we don't lose the value of some good leisure time that's critical to in-depth learning. You know, you have to sit with a text and just ponder it sometimes. I know that sometimes, students have said to me, I just took it back to my townhouse, and I was telling them what a bizarre book it was, and we talked about it. Or, I was hanging out with somebody else in the class, and we were just talking about this book and what we thought of it, and whether we liked it or we didn't like it. And that kind of thing, if you don't have space to do that, if you don't have time to do that, the quality of the learning, I think, suffers. Just being present as you take a walk and to think about things, what's going through your head while you're walking, and to lay aside some of the technology while you're walking, to enjoy the playfulness of your dog while you're walking. That's good, healthy human behavior. And, for students to think deep thoughts, with each other, or to have a cup of coffee with one of the professors sitting in Adirondack chairs on the quad, or it's not efficient, but it's good, and I think it's critical.